Welcome to Story Medicine. I'm Joe Summerfield. For over 20 years, I've been working to better understand and support people in navigating this human experience. I've come to believe that stories are encoded with the collective wisdom of all who have come before us, that they bring us into connection with the collective unconscious, and contain treasure waiting to be decoded. This podcast explores traditional tales through that lens. Each episode offers a story told in full, an exploration of the medicine it carries, and questions to help you integrate that medicine. Today's story comes from Alexander Afanasyev's collection of Russian fairy tales, drawn from oral tradition and published in the mid-19th century. It's called Vasilisa the Beautiful, though sometimes she's known as Vasilisa the Wise. This tale carries profound medicine about feminine initiation, intuition as ancestral wisdom, and the resources we all carry within us when facing what seems impossible. Let's begin. Part 1. The Story. Once upon a time, in a land where the winters were long and the forests deep, there lived a merchant who had a single daughter named Vasilisa. She was known throughout the land as Vasilisa the Beautiful, though her beauty came as much from her kindness as from her face. When Vasilisa was 8 years old, her mother fell gravely ill. Knowing that death was near, the woman called her daughter to her bedside, and from beneath her pillow she drew out a tiny wooden doll, no bigger than a child's hand. "Listen carefully, my precious one," the mother whispered. "I am dying. This is all I can give you. This little doll, and my blessing. Keep the doll with you always, but tell no one about her. When troubles come, give her a little something to eat and a little something to drink, and she will help you. Now, receive my blessing." And with that, the mother kissed her daughter one last time and died. The merchant grieved for a time, as was proper, and then, as is the way of the world, he married again. He thought to give Vasilisa a second mother, but he gave her instead a torment. For the new wife had 2 daughters of her own, and all 3, the stepmother and her 2 daughters, were as beautiful on the outside as they were poisonous within. They envied Vasilisa's beauty and kindness, and sought to destroy both. They gave Vasilisa all the hardest work, fetching water, tending the fire, working in the garden under the hot sun, and scrubbing the floors until her hands were raw. They hoped that the labour would make her thin and ugly, that the sun would coarsen her skin, and that the work would bend her back. But here was the mystery. Vasilisa only grew more beautiful, whilst the stepmother and her daughters, who sat idle with folded hands like fine ladies, grew thin and pinched with spite. The secret was this. Each night, Vasilisa would lock herself away and feed her little doll a crust of bread and a drop of water. And the doll would comfort her and do all of the impossible work whilst Vasilisa slept. Years passed this way. When Vasilisa came of age, young men from all over the land came seeking her hand in marriage. The stepmother turned them all away, though, saying, "I will not let the youngest marry before the eldest," though in truth no man wanted to marry the cruel sisters. One day the merchant had to leave on a long journey. No sooner was he gone than the stepmother moved the family to a house at the very edge of a dense forest. And in that forest, as everybody knew, lived Baba Yaga, a witch so fearsome that she gobbled people up like chickens. The stepmother's plan was simple and wicked. One evening she gave each girl work to do by firelight, one to make lace, one to knit stockings, and Vasilisa to spin yarn. Then when Vasilisa wasn't looking, the stepmother snuffed out the only candle in the house. "Oh no," the stepmother said with false concern. "We have no fire. Someone must go to Baba Yaga's hut to fetch light, or we cannot work." The 2 stepsisters refused, making excuses. They had enough light from their needlework, they claimed. It was Vasilisa who must go. And so Vasilisa was thrust out into the dark forest. She walked trembling, holding the little doll close. The forest at night was alive with sounds, the creaks of branches, the rustles of leaves, the howling of distant wolves. She fed the doll a crust of bread and whispered, "Little doll, I'm frightened, help me." And the doll's voice came soft and certain. "Don't be afraid, Vasilisa. While I am with you, no harm will come to you." As dawn began to break, a horseman suddenly galloped past her. He was dressed all in white, his horse was white, even the horse's harness gleamed silver white in the growing light. As he passed, the sky began to pale. Vasilisa walked on through the day, and at midday another horseman thundered by. This one dressed all in red, riding a red horse with red harness, and as he passed, the sun rose high and warm. She walked on until evening came, and then a third horseman appeared, dressed all in black, riding a coal-black horse with black harness. He galloped up to a gate and then vanished. The moment he passed, darkness fell completely, and there, before her, stood the strangest sight that she had ever seen. A hut, perched atop two enormous chicken legs, spinning slowly in the clearing. Around it was a fence made entirely of human bones, crowned with human skulls. The gate itself was fashioned from leg bones, the bolts from arm bones, and the lock was a set of sharp teeth grinning in the darkness. As the night deepened, the eyes of the skulls began to glow with eerie fire, lighting the entire forest like day. Vasilisa froze, unable to move. Her legs seemed rooted to the spot. Then the earth beneath her began to tremble and shake. The trees groaned, the leaves rustled wildly, and through the forest came Baba Yaga herself, riding in an enormous iron mortar, driving it with a pestle-like whip, and sweeping away her tracks with a broom. She flew up to the gate, sniffed the air with her long nose, and shrieked, "I smell Russian blood! Who dares come here?" Vasilisa stepped forward, trembling. "It is I, grandmother. My stepsisters sent me to fetch fire." Baba Yaga's eyes gleamed. "Ah, so you are kin to my kinswoman, your stepmother. Very well. Stay and work for me, and we shall see what is to be seen. But know this, if you do not complete the tasks I set you, I shall cook you and eat you." The gate swung open, creaking on its bone hinges, and Vasilisa followed the witch inside. Baba Yaga demanded supper, enough for 5 grown men. Vasilisa prepared it all from the well-stocked kitchen, and the witch devoured every morsel. For Vasilisa, she only left a crust of bread and a little soup. "Tomorrow," Baba Yaga commanded, "you will clean the house and yard, cook my supper, and go to the corn bin. Take the 40 bushels of wheat there, and pick out the black grains and wild peas. If you fail even in the smallest part, I shall eat you." Then she stretched out on a bench, put her chin on the shelf, covered herself with her own leg, and began to snore so loudly that the whole hut shook. Vasilisa waited until the snoring grew steady, then took out her doll, gave it a crust of bread and a sip of water, and wept. "Little doll, Baba Yaga has given me impossible tasks. How can I do all this before she returns?" The doll's eyes glowed in the darkness. "Do not fear, Vasilisa. Eat your supper, say your prayers, and go to sleep. The morning is wiser than the evening." When Vasilisa woke before dawn, the white horseman galloped past the gate, and light began to return. She went to the corn bin and found the doll just finishing, separating the last of the black grains from the wheat. The yard was swept, the house was spotless, and all that remained was to cook supper. That evening the red horseman passed, and then the black, and darkness fell. The eyes of the skulls blazed to life. Then the earth shook, and Baba Yaga came rattling home in her mortar. She inspected everything with a critical eye, furious to find nothing wrong. She snorted. Then she clapped her hands, and 3 pairs of disembodied hands appeared, seized the wheat, and vanished to grind it. After supper, Baba Yaga gave new commands. Tomorrow do the same thing as today, but also take the half measure of poppy seeds from the storehouse and pick out every grain of dirt mixed in. Someone has mixed earth with them to vex me, and I want them perfectly clean. Again, the doll did the work whilst Vasilisa slept. The next evening, Baba Yaga had inspected the flawless work and eaten her enormous supper, and she sat back and studied Vasilisa. Why do you stand there so silent, girl? Have you nothing to say to me? Vasilisa hesitated. I did not dare speak, grandmother, but if you permit, I would like to ask you something. Ask, but remember, not every question leads to good. Those who know too much grow old too soon. On my way here, a white horseman overtook me. Who was he? That is my bright dawn. And then a red horseman passed. Who was he? That is my red sun. And then a black horseman? That is my dark night. They are my faithful servants. Baba Yaga leaned forwards. Is there nothing else you wish to ask? Vasilisa remembered the 3 pairs of disembodied hands that had appeared to grind the wheat and press the poppy seeds. But in her pocket the doll gave her a sharp little shake of warning. Vasilisa just shook her head. It is well you asked only of what you saw outside, Baba Yaga said, her eyes glinting. Had you asked about the servants inside my house, I would have had you for my dinner. Now I have a question for you. How did you manage to complete all the work I gave you? Vasilisa's hand went into her pocket. I am helped by the blessing of my dead mother. Baba Yaga leapt up as if scolded. A blessing? Get out! Out of my house this instant! I want no one who carries a blessing to cross my threshold. She shoved Vasilisa out the door, then seized one of the skulls from the fence, stuck it on the end of a staff, and thrust it at her. Here is your fire for your stepmother's daughters. That is what you came for. Now go! Vasilisa ran through the dark forest, the skull lighting her way with its glowing eyes. At first she wanted to throw it away. It was so eerie and frightening. But a voice from the skull itself commanded, Do not throw me away. Take me to your stepmother. And so she carried it all through the night and all the next day. As evening approached, she reached her home. She was about to throw the skull away, thinking surely her stepfamily had found fire by now. But again the skull commanded, Take me inside. And so she entered the house, and the stepmother and the stepsisters rushed to her. At last! We've had no fire since you left. Every time we try to light a candle, it goes out immediately. Vasilisa set the skull on the table. Its eyes began to glow brighter and brighter, following the stepmother and the daughters wherever they moved. They tried to hide, but the eyes found them. They tried to run, but the eyes pursued them. By morning, all 3 were burnt to ashes. Only Vasilisa remained, untouched. She buried the skull deep in the garden, where it would harm nobody, and left that house forever. She travelled to the nearest town and found lodging with an old woman who lived alone. One day, Vasilisa asked the woman for some flax to spin while she waited for her father to return. With the help of her doll, she spun the thread so fine it was like hair, and wove it into cloth so beautiful it seemed to hold light itself. The old woman looked at the cloth and gasped. My child, this is too fine to sell at market. This belongs before the Tsar himself. So she brought the cloth as a gift to the royal palace. The Tsar marvelled at its beauty, but when his tailors tried to work with it, they found it too delicate to cut or to sew. The cloth demanded its creator. The old woman returned and asked if Vasilisa would make the Tsar's shirt from her own cloth. And Vasilisa sewed shirts of such fineness that when the Tsar saw them and saw her, he fell in love immediately. I will never part from you, he said. You must be my wife. And so it was. Vasilisa's father returned from his journey and came to live at court, rejoicing in his daughter's fortune. The old woman came to live with them as well. And the little wooden doll? Vasilisa carried her in her pocket for the rest of her life. Part 2. The Medicine. Let's explore the medicine that this story may offer. On the surface, it's the tale of a young woman who survives her stepfamily's cruelty, completes impossible tasks, and becomes a queen. But like all stories that have survived centuries of retelling, there are many depths here. This is an example of a feminine initiation story. It's about the journey from girlhood to womanhood, from dependence to sovereignty, from being shaped by others' cruelty to standing in your own authority. The story begins with a gift from a dying mother. This wooden doll is far more than a toy. In the language of the psyche, she represents what Jung might have called the self, the deeper wisdom that exists beyond our ego consciousness, connected to something larger than our personal understanding or our circumstances of this lifetime. The doll is intuition made tangible. She is the voice of the mother, yes, but she is also ancestral wisdom, the knowing that runs in the bloodline, the inherited capacity to navigate darkness. The mother tells Vasilisa to keep the doll secret and to feed her. And this is a profound instruction. Our deepest wisdom requires tending. It needs nourishment, the crust of bread, the sip of water. In practical terms, this means giving our intuition attention, space, and sustenance. We cannot access this guidance if we starve it, or if we expose it to those who may mock or dismiss it. Notice how the doll works. She does the impossible tasks while Vasilisa sleeps. And this is the medicine speaking directly about how transformation actually happens. When we rest, when we step back from effortful striving, when we trust something deeper than our conscious will, this is when the impossible becomes possible. The doll represents what happens when we align with resources beyond our limited ego. The stepmother and the stepsisters embody what we might call the hostile inner voices, the parts of us that despise our own beauty, our gifts, our potential. They want to destroy through exhausting labor what they cannot possess. They represent the inner critic, the voice of unworthiness, the part of us that says, "You're not good enough, you should be less," or "You're too much." And here's what's crucial. Vasilisa does not defeat them through direct confrontation. She survives through secret wisdom and inner resourcefulness. Sometimes the medicine isn't in fighting the hostile voices, but in maintaining connection to something that they cannot touch. Then comes the initiation proper, the journey to Baba Yaga. Baba Yaga is a complex figure. She is neither good nor evil in a simple sense. She is what we might call a threshold figure. She guards the boundary between the known world and the unknown, between childhood and maturity, between death and rebirth. Her hut on chicken legs is constantly in motion, neither fully here nor there. The fence of bones and skulls tells us immediately this is a place of death. And indeed, what must die here is Vasilisa's girlhood, her dependence, her belief that she cannot survive on her own. The three horsemen are, of course, symbolic elements as well. We have white, red, and black, dawn, day, and night. They represent the turning of time itself, the inexorable movement of life. Baba Yaga commands even those cosmic forces. She is, in essence, the wild face of the Great Mother, the aspect that includes decay, death, and the terrifying power of nature itself. When Vasilisa completes tasks with the doll's help, she's demonstrating her connection to wisdom beyond herself. But notice what happens when Baba Yaga asks how she managed it. Vasilisa doesn't say, "I have a magic doll." She says, "I am helped by the blessing of my dead mother." This is the moment of maturity. She acknowledges the source without betraying the mystery. She claims her inheritance whilst protecting what must remain sacred. And Baba Yaga's response is equally meaningful. She expels Vasilisa precisely because of this blessing. Baba Yaga says, "I want no blessed ones in my house." And this is crucial medicine. The dark goddess, the terrifying mother, cannot abide the blessed. Once you consciously claim your inheritance, your blessing, your connection to the ancestral wisdom, you cannot remain in the realm of terror and death. You must leave. But Vasilisa doesn't leave empty-handed. She receives the skull with fire, the very thing she came for. But notice, this fire is dangerous, and it burns the stepmother and the stepsisters to ashes. This is symbolic of how truth, genuine inner fire, genuine clarity, destroys what's false. The skull's eyes follow the cruel family members wherever they try to hide. You cannot hide from your own truth once it's been kindled. The aspects of ourselves that have been tormenting us cannot survive in the light of consciousness. After this initiation, Vasilisa moves to the city. She leaves the child at home forever. She takes up a craft, weaving cloth so fine it attracts royal attention. This is what happens after initiation. When we discover our gift, we manifest our mastery. The work is aided by the doll, by intuition, by that deeper wisdom. But now it produces something valuable in the world. The marriage to the Tsar represents the sacred marriage, the union of opposites, the claiming of sovereignty. Vasilisa is no longer defined by her relationship to cruel family members. She now defines herself. She becomes queen. And that final detail, that she keeps the doll in her pocket for the rest of her life, is also important medicine. The initiation doesn't end. The connection to inner wisdom doesn't stop being necessary. Throughout her entire life, Vasilisa continues to feed her intuition, to consult her deeper knowing, to stay in touch with that ancestral wisdom, and to honor the blessing of her mother. This story speaks to anybody who has felt powerless in the face of cruelty, to anybody who has doubted their own inner resources, to anybody facing impossible tasks and wondering how they will survive. The medicine is this: you carry within you a wisdom that is older and deeper than your conscious mind. It is your inheritance. It is your birthright. You came here with it. But it requires tending. It requires secrecy from those who might mock it. It requires trust when everything seems impossible. It requires you to rest and to allow, rather than to exhaust yourself in effortful striving. The initiation into your full self will require you to face what terrifies you. You will have to enter the forest, find the chicken hut on legs, and complete tasks that seem beyond your capability. But you are not doing it alone. The blessing of all who came before you travels with you. Your intuition, when fed, when honored, will show you the way. And sometimes the medicine includes fire that burns away what is false. The truth will pursue the lies until they are turned to ash. This is not comfortable, but it is necessary. What becomes possible when we receive this medicine? We move from powerlessness to sovereignty, from fragmentation to wholeness, from being defined or determined by others' cruelty to standing in our own truth and gift. We learn to trust the wisdom that moves through us when we stop trying to do everything through conscious effort alone. We learn that rest is not laziness, it's where the real work happens. That initiation through darkness is how we find our light. That the terrifying threshold guardian may be exactly who we need to meet. That claiming our blessing gives us power that even the dark goddess must acknowledge. Part 3. Integration. As you sit with this story, here are 3 practices to help you embody its medicine. The first practice, feeding your wisdom. For the next 7 days, create a small daily ritual of feeding your doll, honoring your intuition. Each morning or evening, spend just 5 minutes sitting quietly with a journal. Ask yourself, What does my deeper wisdom want me to know today? And then write whatever arises, without judging or editing. You might receive nothing, you might receive nonsense, or you might receive something startlingly clear. The practice isn't about getting answers, it's about establishing the habit of asking and listening. Like Vasilisa feeding her doll, you are nourishing the connection to the wisdom that exists within you. This practice teaches us that intuition isn't something that we have or don't have, it's something that we tend. It requires regular attention, a little nourishment, and trust that something wiser than our conscious mind is always available when we pause to listen. Second practice, naming your Baba Yaga. What in your life right now feels like facing Baba Yaga? The terrifying threshold that you must cross to get what you need. Write it down, be specific, and then beneath it, write these 3 questions. 1. What impossible task does this situation seem to demand of me? 2. What wisdom might I access if I stopped trying to do this through conscious effort alone? And 3. What aspect of my old self might need to die for me to move through this threshold? Sit with these questions for 20 minutes. Don't rush the answers. Let the questions work on you the way that Baba Yaga's tasks worked on Vasilisa, revealing what you carry that you didn't know you had. This practice reminds us that the things that terrify us are often threshold guardians. They are not here to destroy us, but to test whether we are ready to claim what lies beyond them. The terror is real. The danger may be real, but so is your inner resource. The third practice, identifying what must burn. Vasilisa's stepmother and stepsisters were burned to ashes by the skull's fire. In your own life, what aspects of how you've been living, what voices, what patterns, what old stories need to be reduced to ash? Create a simple ceremony. On separate small pieces of paper, write 3 things that have been stepfamily voices in your life. The internal critics, the inherited patterns of cruelty, the beliefs that tell you that you're not enough, or that you're too much, or that you're wrong somehow. Light a candle. Read each one aloud, acknowledging its power over you, feeling it in your body. And then burn each piece of paper in the candle's flame, one at a time, saying, "This voice does not survive in the light of my truth." When you're done, sit in silence with the candle for a few minutes, noticing how it feels to have declared what no longer has power over you. This practice honors that transformation does include destruction. Something must end for something new to begin. The skull's fire is fierce, but it burns only what was already ash, waiting to happen. The medicine doesn't come from understanding these patterns intellectually. It comes from the practices, from feeding your wisdom daily, from recognizing your threshold guardians, from consciously releasing what must burn away. The doll in your pocket is always there, but only if you remember to nourish her, only if you trust her when tasks seem impossible, only if you protect her from those who may mock or diminish what it is that you carry. The wisdom in these old stories waits patiently. I hope this one's medicine found you where you need it. If this episode resonated with you, please consider leaving a review and subscribing. It helps others to find these stories when they need them. Thank you for listening to Story Medicine. I am Joe Summerfield. Until next time.